welcome back with our guests this evening, Chris Turner and Paul Hurst. The subject has been heavily accented towards Sheffield Wednesday, but we'll have some Blades chat. I insist upon it, by the way, in part two. James is going to bring us up to date with everything that's happening transfer-wise, because none of us have been looking at our mobiles, have we, in the first half of the show. And I've got to say that Paul, who's having a brief, I think between jobs, a brief sojourn between jobs at the moment, having had a very impressive career already, early career in management, has got his bases covered every which way, because if the worst comes to the worst, that degree that you've got in professional sports writing and broadcasting could come in useful.
It might have to, yeah. I'm hoping that football comes back around for me, but it was something that I felt I needed to do at the time, because I didn't feel or think I would get an opportunity as a manager. So it helped me get a job at a school, because they were fortunate at the time when so many people out of work, they only interviewed people with a degree. So it's come in handy already, but as you say, I might be something that I'm falling back on.
Yeah, okay. Watch and learn, or don't.
Yeah.
And watch what not to do. This was at Staffordshire University, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It was the first cohort that former, again, Sheffield Wednesday player, Laurie Madden,
yes,
was one of the main tutors there, and there was 4 of us from Rotherham. Probably the most famous one who's gone on for a career in the media, Scott Minto.
Scott Minto doing very well, presenting on Sky.
He's very good.
Yes,
and
he does a lot of homework, because I get calls from him occasionally, and he happens to think I know something about the 2 Sheffield teams whenever they come in, so he rings to pick my brains on them.
No, he's a good guy, Scott.
Yeah.
He did very well on it, and it was something just trying to plan ahead, and it's certainly come in handy for Scott.
Absolutely, yeah. And our old pal Laurie, that of course you were in the same team as, although James, but in part 1 we got onto the subject towards the end of part 1 about how you remember Steve Bruce coming in to the Manchester United team from Norwich, would it be, in the 80s?
In the 88, around about 88, yeah. First game, Portsmouth away, 1-2-1. I think Steve scored. He might have scored, but he broke his nose scoring the goal.
How many times has he broken that nose?
Well, he breaks it that way, and he probably broke it that way. But he's, what a great career he had at Manchester United, which is, once again puts him in great stead for the job that he's got, that lies ahead of him in the next few years.
A leader on the field.
Massive leader on the field.
Yeah.
Massive leader on the field. Great in the dressing room, and fantastic career.
Such a nice guy, relaxed. He always, in my experience, tells you about the game you've seen. As a manager, he doesn't hide, as you said in part 1, if it's been bad, he'll say it's been bad. If it's been good, you don't get any attempt to...
Well, I think that's how you've got to be as a manager, because the difficulty is that you're asked these questions directly after a game, and you haven't had time really to sit down and think about it. But you can't can 25,000 people if your team's been bad, and you can't keep making excuses for them. And that's why I think Steve, as I said before, he'll tell you how it is.
Particularly in this part of the world as well, innit? Because people, they like straight talking here. You've found, lots of managers from both clubs in the city in the last few years who maybe have tried to just sort of paint a rosier picture than perhaps it actually was if I'm going to be polite. Yes, the current Hull City manager, has been one of them, who is doing very well now. But it just didn't work for one reason or another. Obviously, it wasn't working on the pitch, but the fans didn't warm to him at all.
I remember one former manager at Sheffield Wednesday, who I won't name today, always used to say, praise the opposition, how good they were.
Yeah.
To cover up.
If you've lost.
If you've lost, yeah.
That's an afterthought, isn't it, usually?
I'm going to try and guess who that was. But no, I can't.
Don't do it.
I better not, because you're not going to say.
No.
Chris, by the way, not always credited, in my view, for building the Sheffield Wednesday team that got promoted in 2005.
Yeah.
You've signed some great players there, Brunt and Whelan and people like that. And it was going to come together, but actually Paul Sturrock got the benefit of your team, although taking nothing away from him.
Well, no, I mean, it's recruitment's the most important part of the club, because if you don't recruit right, you're deemed for failure.
And you did, definitely.
And that was pretty much Whereas Steve now is inheriting a squad of players where there's a lot of players out of contract, that's a great situation. I inherited a team that had another 14 months basically to go on the contract, so there was no way that you could move them on, the ones that you wanted to move on. So my recruitment really was that squad that we did, and I brought in I think 12 players that summer, which is a lot of players to bed into a new squad. And you know, the likes of Lee Bullen, Paul Eckingbottom, Bullen, Whelan, McLean scored, was the first striker to score 20 goals for a long time, since Mark Bright, I think, at Sheffield Wednesday, and they all played major key parts. But they were recruited over about a 6-month period before the start of that season. But unfortunately, as a manager, you have to win. And like Paul's been at Ipswich, he's gone into a new club, and players have left, key players have left. Hasn't really had the time to recruit, and he's brought players in and started the season, and things don't go quite well, and the chairman make a change. They've made a change, but things haven't changed.
It was in October that changed, and you know there was a mixed reaction to it. I don't know. I think, in fairness to Ipswich supporters, they were. Am I right saying they were still with you?
Some, I have to say, they were some of the best fans I think out there in terms of giving you a chance and patience. I go along the adage of 6 games, and I got more than that. I got 14 games. So I mean, it took us, I don't know if it was 11 or 12 before we won away at Swansea. We'd had some decent results like the Villa one, like I said, and then a couple of disappointments. Overall, I didn't feel like the team was playing that bad, but ultimately we all know it comes down to results.
Did it surprise you when the
No,
decision
it
was
didn't,
made?
because like I said, I think I'm realistic, going back to the honesty, and like, I think that's why again Steve Bruce is a good match for this part of the country, because as Chris said, you should be like that as a manager and shouldn't try and fool people, but I think we've all probably seen and heard some that are. But the fans, I have to say, I felt a lot of them they wanted a change from Mick McCarthy, and that was nothing bad on my side from Mick. He'd done a great job, and that's been proved. But they just wanted to see something different. Unfortunately, some of them stuck to that principle, that they were seeing a different style. Others wanted results and a change in style. And I think it will take quite some time for that cycle to change. I hope that the club can survive, but either way I think they will be better prepared in the future. They've got a lot of good young players there, but I do think unfortunately patience for the fans I think is going to be something they'll need.
Just before we come to James for the window, has Steve Bruce actually underneath that got a short fuse anywhere? Because I've not seen it yet. Can he hit the roof?
Yeah. No. You don't manage the clubs and have the success that he's had without having to let off a Fergie blowout now and again, which we've seen many a time.
You've seen that from him?
No. He'd have seen that from Fergie.
You'd have seen it from Fergie.
So you'll know what to do. Yeah.
But it's only effective if it's occasional.
Of course.
Well, it can only be occasional. You can't go in every. Because if you're doing it every week, you've certainly got a lot of problems in your team.
It loses effect as well.
It loses the effect.
He doesn't need a commercial, this guy, but he's going to get one anyway, because if somebody's looking for a manager, you could do a lot worse than somebody who served an apprenticeship and got promotion at Ilkeston Town, who then got promotion at Boston United, 2 non-league promotions, then lifted Grimsby Town back into the Football League with promotion, went to Shrewsbury, kept them into League One, and then got them into the League One playoff final the following season, where unfortunately they lost to Rotherham. So, and he had a brief experience at Ipswich, which will have stood him in good stead. So, this is a guy who's...
Any football chat?
I was just going to say,
Agent Biggs.
Agent Biggs.
He's on board.
It's the only payment you get from this show.
That's fine.
So, what's going on? Have I missed any big...
We'll rattle through it quickly. I promise you I'll round up all the other sort of sporting clubs next week. as we go on. We'll just quickly run through Hallow FC. They're at home to Winterton this weekend. That's weather permitting, of course. You know what it's like up at Sandygate. Sheffield Club, they've got Carlton Town at home as well this weekend. Sheffield United ladies, they're away down at Loughborough. The Sheffield Sharks, they've got Leicester at the English Institute of Sport. And the Steelers, a double header for them, of course. Cardiff away from home on Sunday, but Guildford on Saturday. Well, the Blades, they've got Bolton at home this Saturday, 3 p.m, of course, at Bramall Lane. Supporters, as they probably digested the incoming of Scott Hogan, they may have probably noticed as well that Sam Graham and Stephen Mallon, only 18 and 19 years old respectively, have actually moved down to Central Coast Mariners in Australia, both out on loan. Good, exactly, big move. Of course, it's Nick Montgomery, he's the assistant manager there, former player. Good experience for them. But the Blades, they've been busy this window. They brought in Gary Medine, of course, Kieran Dowell, as well as making Oliver Norwood's loan deal permanent from Brighton. Leon Clark, of course, going the other way. Several other young players going out on loan to lower league clubs as well. Busy window for United. Hopefully, there's no more outgoings as well this evening as it rumbles on. There wasn't any sort of whispers of that when I was out the studio in the first half. Namely John Fleck. There's lots of interest from West Ham United. They went in with a bid that was perhaps a little bit too low to be accepted.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're going to have to see how that one pans out over the next, T-minus 3 hours. Just there or thereabouts.
He'd be a very hard player to replace. You know, I couldn't call it with any certainty when I sort of made a check yesterday morning. That was the one that I couldn't. I knew that Hogan was coming in. So fingers crossed on that one.
Fingers crossed.
In the chemistry of the Blades midfield, he's an important player, isn't he?
Massive
he virtually
player.
picks himself, that midfield.
Yeah, he's a massive player for Sheffield United, and with them being third in the league, I'd be very surprised that they were to let him go at this stage, unless it was I think they reported 4 million, unless he went up to 10, 15 million, that I think he'll still be playing for Sheffield United.
You'd hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, players can be tempted round the back door by what Premier League clubs can pay.
Still got a lot of
but
time
at the
on
end
the
of the
contract.
day, Sheffield United can say no, as long as that player still switched on.
The fact that Sheffield United are, a realistic chance and right in the mix to win promotion to the Premiership might just make it that little bit easier to keep hold of him. Sounds silly, but 4 million. It's hardly anything.
No.
Yeah. Relatively speaking.
In terms now, so
derisory.
I think he's key player for Sheffield United, and I'm sure Chris will be desperate to keep hold of him.
We'll see how that goes. Being fairly busy, busier than expected. For Wednesday, of course, we've got Ipswich, Paul's former side, this weekend away from home. But Wednesday, they could see Sam Winnell leave on loan to Sunderland for the rest of the season. That's just sort of come out in the last couple of hours. That's, of course, after Steve Bruce this afternoon in his unveiling press conference did say there's far too many strikers at the club, so that'd make sense, that one. But deals have been agreed with the Newcastle pairing of Ashraf Lazar and Rolando Aarons as well. Lazar is a left-back, Aarons is a versatile forward. And Wednesday, they're also set to sign the right-back, Dominic Iorfa, on a permanent deal from Wolves as well. That's expected to be completed in the next hour or so.
I think those are positions where I think, by common consent, Wednesday needed to strengthen.
Well, I think they need pace.
Yeah,
they need pace in the team.
And Aarons would appear to have it.
Iorfa's got pace as well. I don't know much about the other lad, but
No, I
I think I
don't.
just said it's not a major surprise positionally, certainly. What they've identified already, and again that goes back to Steve's know-how, and hopefully those lads can come in and do a good job.
And his contacts, and presumably knowing Rafa Benitez, etc. I mean, Aarons, interestingly, he's 23 now, but a few years ago when he came into the Newcastle team, he scored a couple of goals in 5 starts there. So that would appear to indicate a level of ability. He's been out on loan since then. So that's interesting. And your take as a former Sunderland player as well, Chris, they've been linked with about 15 strikers, I think, in the last couple of days.
I've seen Sunderland.
They finally got one.
I've seen Sunderland a few times this season, and Maja, who's gone to a French club,
Bordeaux, isn't it?
was a real good prospect. But they have struggled to.
Charlie Wyke injured, was he?
Yeah,
At one stage?
they have struggled to finish teams off from being well on top in games and ended up drawing games, which has just made them lose a little bit of ground on Portsmouth and Luton, which is a bit of a worry. I know they've got games in hand, but those games are going to come thick and fast when your players lose a bit of form, pick up injuries and so on.
Winnall's got a track record there at League One, good track record.
But I think Winnall could do well for him. I mean, he's been injured a lot the last 12 months, which is, you know, not a great, you know, for him. But he needs to be playing football.
Dry January. I've written down dry January. I wouldn't normally put two words together like that.
Yeah, we know
one
that.
of us in the studio's doing it. It's not you, is it?
Not me. No, not
me.
me.
It's not you. Is it you?
It's not
Paul?
me, no.
It must be me.
How do you feel on that?
Good. I feel good. I mean, it was just, I've been fortunate because this month there's not been any obstacles to get over in terms of going out with the lads or going out with friends, and it's been pretty quiet. So it's been okay to get go. Wife has been doing the same as well. So and I must say you do feel better for it.
Right, well, it's the 31st of January. You must feel like a guy in the sort of 90th minute of a football match. You know, that when we go across the road after the programme tonight, you're into stoppage time then. Are you going to manage to hold out?
Well, I mean, you know, you get to the point where you don't really want to have a drink. It's strange. It's strange, and I'm, as all the fellow players that I used to play with and people I know, I love a good night out.
I know that.
I love a good night out.
I've seen you.
So you know.
I don't know about this for a segue, but I'm going from dry January to John Sheridan, your former.
You mean
I see what you did there, Alan.
Yeah, doing great at Chesterfield.
Well, you know, it's sad to see where Chesterfield have gone in the last 2 or 3 seasons, and they've had a number of managerial changes, and Dave's decided to go back to a manager that had been successful at the club, and he's had a good start. He's brought a striker back today from Gateshead, who has been scoring regular goals, and it's something that I think that they do need somebody up the front who's going to score regular goals.
Yeah, Scott Bowden.
Scotty Bowden, who left the club as a young player.
Yeah, and you of course worked with John Sheridan in your time as chief executive there.
Yeah.
And you know, it's taken a very ambitious effort to. Were you surprised at that when you saw him move from Carlisle, who were in the playoff places in League Two, and have actually pushed on despite him leaving? Were you surprised to see that?
He's clearly left a good team behind, and Stephen Presley's gone in and had a couple of wins. It was a surprise. You know, I don't know whether Chris knows, but for me, whether logistically, the fact, like I say, it's a former club.
Closer to home, but also pushed the boat out.
But it was, and look, fine. And again, I don't know John's, you know, what his financial state is, but again, you'd like to think he's probably done okay. It's not going to be the most important part of the decision he's made, but he's joined a club that's in a precarious position yet again. You know, it's the nearest club to where I actually live. You know, first game I went to after getting the site was Chesterfield Wrexham. One thing's for certain, John will be playing a different style of football than what Martin did previously. So again, there's lots of things he's got to contend with to ensure that they, you know, stay in the conference, which I'm sure we all hope that they do. And you know, I've got a feeling that they will do that. But it was a big decision for John, I'm sure.
Good to see Dave Allen with a bit between his teeth and back in the saddle.
Well, I don't think he's ever been out the saddle, and I think that without Dave Allen, there would be no Chesterfield because of he's continued to pour a lot of personal finance into the club to keep it going, and he's doing it again this season. And
but back hands on and actually physically back at matches.
Well, I think really? That's always been needed. I mean, Dave was absent for 2 years nearly, and it needs the leader to be there, and hopefully now they can quell the unrest that's been off the pitch, and people can now concentrate on the footballing matters on it, and they can win some games and start to get that good feeling back, which has been missing.
So where are we all heading this weekend then? Are you going down?
Well, I'm heading to the pub. No.
I don't think you'll have left the pub on the 1st of January, which is tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think you're there all day.
February, yeah.
1st of February, yeah. Sorry. You don't want to go back.
You've got to start again.
Yeah. No.
What about you? Is it hard, you know, you're obviously looking, scouting around, wondering what the possibilities are. Is it really hard when you're out of work like that, if you turn up at a game, people are going to say, "Oh, I wonder if he's thinking that the manager's going to get the sack here"?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's, again, some managers out there that purposely go somewhere where a manager's under pressure. Now, that's not anything that I would ever do. I went to Scunthorpe, Sunderland the other week and sat in the director's box. Now, if Stuart had a bad run as Scunthorpe manager at one stage, thankfully he'd won 4 on the bounce and then a big game, I wouldn't have gone in the director's box had he still been on a bad run. But I was there simply to watch the game, keep your eye on players, and that's something you have to continue to do because football changes very quickly. In terms of a player can be in good form 6 months ago, and I think that's sometimes mistakes that managers make. And again, we talk about recruitment. You can be a fantastic manager, coach, all of that. It helps if you've got good players in the first instance, or you know, bring good players to the football club. So I'm out watching games. I went to Bradford Tuesday night. Not quite sure on this weekend just yet, but I enjoy it. You know, because often you get to meet people. You know, whether it's other managers that are at work, scouts, and it keeps your eye and it keeps you involved. And I prefer, you know, seeing games live as much as, you know, I like watching football on TV. It's better to see it. Was at Rotherham last weekend as well. Yeah. I guess for John Breckin, and you know, I was gutted for Warney after putting a big effort with a late winner for Leeds, which would have been a good point for them.
Yeah, it was. Fortunately, the 3 below them are not picking up points either, but it would be a massive achievement for Rotherham and for the manager to stay up, wouldn't it, in that league? And let's hope they do it.
Well, I think Rotherham's been a great success story for the area. I think from having no stadium, from Millmore to no stadium to the present stadium, and to be in the Championship, and the chairman to say spent 55 million pounds on funding the club. I think it's unbelievable, and I think it's credit to everybody at Rotherham that where they are, and even if they're battling every season to stay in the league, that's still a great achievement.
Yeah. Meanwhile, a minute left. I'm at Bramall Lane for Sheffield United against Bolton at the weekend. I think one of those games that fans look at and think, "Whoa, that's 3 points," but I don't know. Bolton battle, and they play a style where, you know,
they're hard to play against.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen it this week. Liverpool were going to go 7 points clear last night playing Leicester. Yeah. You can never. Football. The beauty of football is you don't know what's going to happen, and you know, on paper, you think Sheffield United are going to win. I think they will, like yourself.
I can see a second half headline for Gary Medine, possibly
against his former club.
Against his former club.
Yeah,
it's a good show.
Yeah, these players have a knack of doing that.
They do. Okay, so we look forward to reading. You'll be there as well, won't you?
No, I won't actually. No,
I'm
down away this weekend, but I will be at the Bees versus the Bees replay on Tuesday night down in
good game that this week.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic.
I've got to say, after the brilliant performance at Bramall Lane, I'm with Barnett on that one.
Come on, Biff. Come on, the Bees.
Paul, thanks so much. Brilliant debut. Chris, thank you. James, to you as well. YouTube later if you miss. See you next week. Bye-bye.